Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast. Today, I have a special guest on, Giovanni Riggioni, and he'll be coming on to talk about really an array of different topics and things related to insights. So, Gio, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So, before we get started, can you give a quick background and maybe tell people where you're from, what company, and sort of the type of work that you do?
Sure. I'm originally from San Jose, Costa Rica. I've been working here for all my adult life, actually. And I've had like a 20 plus year career. I started out at Warner Brothers. I worked at TiVo, and now I work at HP with a few short stops in between. But that's basically it. Yeah. So doing a lot of research on technology and related.
Awesome. Are you more qual, more quant? Where do you fit on that spectrum?
I've done lots of both.
Okay.
But I tend to work more on quant projects than anything else.
Are you more drawn to that, or is that just what kind of you get funneled in, or?
Yeah, I think it's because of the work that I've been doing over the years. A lot of it has been uptake of technology, uptake of devices. So you need a lot of data to support that. And not that the whys and the hows are not important, that stuff that you can dig into a little bit deeper on qual, but sometimes the what, getting the what is the first step.
Yeah, that's a good point. Getting the what, I think, sometimes gets missed, don't you think, in research? And do you have any strategies on how you can get to the what in like a faster pace?
Gosh, a faster pace. I think that's a little bit of a pitfall. I mean, no question, that's what many companies are asking of their in-house and external research partners. But I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. Yes, it's important to get things in a timely manner, but it's more important to do it right. And I think in that sense, you have to really take your time and really set up for it. Make sure that you're going back to basics. I mean, for example, for me, that means writing a research brief. It seems like it's a step for me. Sometimes nobody else sees it. Sometimes my stakeholders see it. Sometimes my boss sees it, but it's not something that most people ask for. It comes in handy sometimes after the fact, and that's writing, what the context is, what the definition of the question or the problem is, who it is that we want to talk to. It's writing down any assumptions that you're making or any previous knowledge that you're coming into this with sometimes, or things to keep in mind, and even just like hypotheses to test out in your research. So all this stuff, and part of the preparation to make sure that you achieve a successful outcome.
Yeah, I like that because you're right. In this day and age, everyone wants things, fast. It's like the old what phrase, like good, fast, and cheap. You can't have all three. You can pick two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people want that, but it comes at a cost. And to your point, focusing on like the research brief, which frankly might get skipped in some instances, right? If you're just trying to push things out. So going back to basics, not taking any shortcuts, I really like that aspect of it. What area of research or in the industry are you most passionate about?
This sounds weird, but the way that I see my role is to sort of be an advocate of consumer or client, depending on the type of research I'm doing within the company. Because a lot of times we do research for specific things. So we might have a research project that goes into, maybe pricing for a product or features. And another piece of research that goes into, would they pick our product versus competitor products and why? But there's more than that, and cumulatively you get to compile this knowledge about who your customers are, what kinds of things that they prefer, and sometimes being a mouthpiece for that is, I think, super important. So beyond what the results of your latest survey are, to be able to provide that point of view in an interactive way, even in meetings, when people are talking about, hey, we're thinking about this bundle of services, for example, and you go, oh, you know what? If you put more than 5 or 6 things on there, people are going to start to think that they're not using too many of those things, and maybe that bundle is not for them. That's one of the pieces of feedback that we've learned from doing, multiple bundle studies over the years. And that kind of feedback is super valuable. You don't have to
Yeah.
start from scratch.
Right. So you got to draw on previous insights to inform future insights, right? So that's a
Mhm.
pretty key thing. You know that you try to bundle all these things. There's going to be some products in that bundle that just, hey, the client or the customer's never going to use those. So we got to think about this. We know it's almost like drawing on research that you've already done, right? And I think that's important because a lot of
Yes,
research you do in the past can just sit on the shelf, right? And like, what do you do with it? But then as long as you have that knowledge and you can get it out to people, then it's not lost, so to speak. For it's not just one time use, I guess, is maybe a better way to say it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't rely on your stakeholders or your clients to remember all that. Frankly,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're busy doing their own jobs, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is an area where you can add value.
What are some recent projects or studies that you'd like to highlight? Anything interesting that comes to mind that you've worked on?
Yeah, I've been involved in a study that we started earlier this year on decision making. And how, in this case, we started out with consumers. So, how consumers make decisions on which printer to buy, for example. HP sells printers. So, the assumption here, the consensus was that this is mostly a very rational decision, right? It's a category that's not particularly exciting to anyone. Printers have been around for too long for that. It's almost a commodity, right? Or it is a commodity. Also, people buy new printers usually when something's wrong with their old printer, right? So this isn't going to change their life necessarily. So we all, the consensus, including myself, thought that yeah, this is going to be a very rational decision, and we're going to be able to identify which pieces of information are the most critical, and that's that. And it totally surprised us. In concordance with academic research, we found that most of the decision is actually system one. So this fast gut instinct decision-making process, at least 3/4 of the decision is based on little things related to gut and instinct, your lizard brain. And there is a part of the process that's rational and comparative and that kind of thing. But no, even in a category that's a little bit older, that's very familiar to most people, you can still see that the decisions being made are not necessarily all rational.
Which is interesting, right? Because you think a printer would be more of a rational decision. But I think if I go to like, Costco or wherever, or even on Amazon, I'm shopping for a printer, I'd probably look at like the features and price. Those would be like the two main things I'd probably look at, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it, honestly. So, and
Hmm.
it's interesting because the printer I have now, I'm looking at it. It's in the corner of my office here. It's old, right? And I'm been wanting a new one, and I'm like, you're right. When something is wrong with your previous printer, that's when someone buys one or it doesn't have a feature. And I'm like, it would be nice just to have a good Wi-Fi printer. This printer's sold. It doesn't have Wi-Fi, right? So
Hmm.
there's features like that where I'm like, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And to your point, I would just probably go to the store and find the right one for the right budget, and then, you know, bring it home. So not so much like a big thinking, like not critical thinking, just more of like, oh yeah, this is a printer that I'm going to buy. So
Yeah, and I think most of that, without getting too much into the results, because I really shouldn't, but
yeah.
uh, I think that this is, if you think about it a little bit more deeply, the human brain is wired for shortcuts, right?
Hmm.
We want to shortcut everything as much as we can. So we think about, we make up stories, we take other people's advice, we might rely on past experience. We have a number of different ways where we can shortcut that decision. And especially when we're not particularly, I don't know, emotionally engaged in the decision, is when we want to make the biggest shortcuts possible, because this is not a preferred task,
Right.
you know. So let's spend the least amount of time on it. And how do we do that? By using these kind of system one shortcuts. So
Hmm.
it is very emotional. And some of this has to do with perception, maybe not
Hmm.
even reality necessarily, right?
Hmm.
If you had three friends that recently bought brand X, you might say, well, I'm only going to look at brand X printers because all my buddies said that they're the best now
Yeah.
and they have great experiences. So it's that easy.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking about just my own thinking, and it is just that easy. So, in research, we talk a lot about particular topics that people focus on them a lot. What do you think isn't being talked about enough? Is there a particular topic or subject that is like kind of under the radar that you're like, hey, we're not talking about this enough as an industry?
Gosh, I think I agree with a lot of your previous guests who have mentioned, for example, fraud in market research, the prevalence of bots. That's been certainly something that's come up for us and our vendors in the last couple of years. That it continues to evolve because the bots get more sophisticated, and so the methods to identify them have to get more sophisticated. I think I feel like maybe I'm too old school at this, but back to the basics kind of stuff. And it goes to that whole thinking of preparation leads to success,
Hmm.
right? It's work and preparation. And so I feel like taking your time, setting the stage for your research, thinking about what you want the outcome to look like, not what the outcome should be, but what form it needs to be in for your stakeholders or clients to best make use of it, and
Hmm.
sort of designing backwards that way. I think that the basics are still the basics and can very much lead to better outcomes.
You're 100% right. And what's interesting is we do a lot of webinars here, right? And we do like ones on AI, data quality. But oddly enough, some of the best attended webinars are how to write a survey, just like a basic, survey
Hmm.
101 crash course. And it's amazing to get people from all experience levels coming to that. Some to obviously upskill, some to revisit skills that maybe they haven't thought about in a while. But to your point, it is a lot of like back to basics sometimes.
Yeah, I think that the kind of people I learn from the most in my job are my colleagues, people I work with, our vendors,
Hmm.
even interns that I've had to mentor in the past. They bring a fresh perspective, and sometimes, or should I say often, they're thinking of things that I'm not thinking about. So I think that all needs to sort of be incorporated into your thinking.
Right, 100%. Kind of along those lines and kind of flipping it a little bit, what's the biggest change you've seen in research over the past few years? Obviously, AI is out there. Would you say AI or something different?
Well, I think it more recently, for sure, AI, which we're still in the baby stages of. I mean, AI seems really cool and it seems like it can do a lot, but I think, as some of your past guests have said, we're still needs human oversight. I think that, in particular, I think that there are a few challenges with using AI. Is that AI is never reading between the lines. It's never looking at body language. It's not hearing tone. And so these are things where a human needs to be involved, or many humans need to be involved, perhaps, right? Depending on the size of the project. And this is not peripheral information, right? I don't think an AI is well equipped to process sarcasm. It's not that you don't get sarcastic answers. You get sarcastic answers all the time
Yeah,
in
that's true.
in open ends, in
Yeah, yeah,
conversations and interviews and focus groups. So just going by sort of the literal meaning is not good enough
hmm,
yet, I think. So
yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right, and maybe someday, right? It'll get there, detect sarcasm, but still, some of that I feel is feel like as a human experience, right? Where it's going to be maybe there's some way, and someone a lot smarter than myself will come up with a way to develop some of these things and read between the lines. But
yeah.
I don't know. At this point, I'm 100% on board with you that it definitely takes some human oversight to get to the nuance of some of the phrases and things people are saying.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Even the youngest of us that start in this profession right after college, they're
Hmm.
21, 22, 23 years old. They have 20 some years of experience
Yep.
processing human language. And so that's much more than the AI has. And I I guess it also depends on how it's trained and what it's trained to identify and so on and so
Right.
forth.
Right.
So absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah. What else are you excited about? Any trends or innovations that you've seen recently that get you kind of excited?
Yeah, well, one of the podcasts I listen to is called "People I Mostly Admire" with Stephen Levitt. He's one of the authors of the Freakonomics book. So he hosts this podcast, and I think it's every week, he has a different guest talking about. They're all interesting to me. maybe I'm just a nerd, but they're all interesting.
No,
But
Freakonomics was funny. It was good to me. I remember listening to that and reading the book. So yeah,
mhm.
it's awesome. Yeah.
And recently he had an episode where he talked to this lady. She's a Harvard economics professor called Stephanie Stancheva,
Hmm.
and she apparently has recently taken up the economics world by storm by using survey data, which most economists, as they made clear in this podcast, as to survey data because they think
Hmm.
it's crap. But
Right.
I think she's proven that it can be a valuable tool in looking at motivations and understanding and perceptions in a way that behavioral data can't really explain. And
Hmm.
so I'm looking forward to seeing more about what she does. She spoke about several of her projects, one of which is taxes and how people perceive taxes and how they form opinions about taxes. Super
Right.
interesting, and that's the kind of stuff that I geek out about. And then, it rattles in my brain in my head for a
Hmm.
while, and then sometimes I can make use of it in my work, and sometimes not. But it sounds very promising.
Yeah, I like how survey data is reliable. That's a. I think about it, I'm like, well, yeah, but I guess if you're an economist, you might think, differently if you're used to different, models and analyzing things differently than or outside of survey data. So interesting. I'll have to check that episode out. It's right up my alley for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. Moving on to like challenges and lessons learned. I think this is something that people like to hear from, guests such as yourself about. What's the biggest challenge that you faced in research and how did you overcome it?
I think there's a lot of nuance in research. Um, and of course, people that aren't very familiar with research or don't do research don't have any idea of of the kind of nuance that can go into creating a successful project, for example. So you have to train for that, number one. But also, one of the things I found super discouraging and very difficult to manage is when a client or a stakeholder belittles the research because of the content. I think that's something that many market researchers or researchers in general that use surveys and interviews and focus groups tend to experience because it's easy to poke holes in stuff, right? I don't know. I think when results are negative or unexpected, sometimes people's reaction is to lash out a little bit at you or at the research itself, right? And it makes it very difficult to sort of affect change when you have that kind of relationship with the consumer of the research. What have I done to make sure that doesn't happen to me? Me personally, it's a lot about building relationships. So,
Hmm.
you know, talk to your client, talk to your stakeholder, make sure that you understand their point of view, involve them in the process whenever possible. And some people don't care to be involved in the process.
Right.
However, so you can involve them in the process as much as they're comfortable with. So if they want to be part of the methodology selection or the questionnaire design, there's things you can do, right? It doesn't mean that you have to open the doors to you can mess with anything.
Right.
It can be like, okay, so we have these two different options of methodology. They each have their pluses and minuses. This is what I recommend, but what do you think?
Hmm.
Right? Having that interaction and that buy-in helps bring them a little closer to the research itself. And then they tend to be less um, argumentative about the things that they can't control,
Got it.
right?
Makes sense. So they tend to trust the process a little more if
Yeah,
they're
I think
involved, you
so.
think? Yeah.
Especially if, I know sometimes I cringe when I think about, oh God, I'm going to have to give so and so access to the survey and they're going to tear it apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they know nothing about creating questions and writing
Hmm.
questions. And so if that's the case, well, don't show them the questionnaire, show them an outline
Oh,
of questions, show them uh, sort of the way that you're structuring the research so that you can get to the answers that they want. There's, I guess, unlimited ways of doing this, depending on what your comfort level is, what their comfort level is. But I think making it a collaboration is usually what I find to be the most successful, at least in preventing that sort of scenario where you come in and they go, "Oh my God, this is totally wrong. It
Hmm.
sucks. It,
Yeah.
whatever." And so you're not belittling what they do. You're trying to give them the tools to make it even better.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great point. I love your points around collaboration. I think that's so important in bringing them into the process.
Hmm.
And also, if you know the results aren't going to be, let's say, well received based on based on the insights you got back, definitely like prep them a little bit, right? Like, and I like how you always refer back to the data as like that's the truth. So I think that's a key point.
Yeah, yeah. You're just the messenger, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you're just trying to help them understand what the results are saying.
Yep. Yeah.
This is not you making up the data. If you have like a main client or partner or stakeholder that you're working with, do a presentation just for them. Give them time to
No.
process the results, give them time to think about what you've told them,
Hmm.
and then ask them if they want to collaborate on writing the executive summary or the recommendations
Right.
or so on and so forth, right? I think it becomes much more palatable to them, and also I think it's ultimately the research gets used, and I think that's the key thing, right? We're not
Hmm.
spending money just to keep me entertained as a researcher,
Right.
right? We're
Right.
supposed to come up with answers that we can apply and make a
Yeah.
difference to our business. So,
Yeah, that's a good that's a good point. You would do research all day, but make sure
oh
that the
yeah.
research is is getting used. And yeah, that's a great point. You've given a lot of great advice so far on the podcast, but is there anything else or another piece of advice that you'd give to someone looking to improve how they approach their research?
Um, I think it's the preparation. That Abraham Lincoln quote about if I have 9 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first six sharpening my axe. I think that fits perfectly. So if you only have 30 minutes or an hour or 24 hours to get your research in field, make sure that you're setting aside time to do the prep, to think through, to think about, okay, if I ask it this way, how will it look like in the back end? Is getting a number what I need to provide the results, or do I need to provide a range, or do I need to, you know, think about all those things. I think that can only help you. I don't see you going wrong with that. You can't change expectations, right? You can't change anybody else, anything else but what you're doing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, no, that's great. It reminds me of the quote, like the separations and the preparations. So I think along your, and I love that Abraham Lincoln quote too. So yeah, definitely spend time sharpening your axe. I agree with that 100%. You mentioned a podcast already, but any other podcasts or resources that you would point people to that maybe shape the way you think about research or personal development, anything around there?
you know, uh, other than yours, I really haven't, and I'm not kissing up, I swear.
It's
Uh,
okay. You can do that, Gio. I don't mind.
I haven't really listened to many other market research podcasts, mostly due to lack of awareness.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to talk through these things, and I often rely on my vendors or the
Yep.
vendors that I know or are familiar with. A lot of them do webinars, a lot of them do other education type seminars, and I attend as many as I can. I try to get something out of it because even if it's something I already know, I
Yep.
can promise I forgot 10 things at least.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah. That's great. Well, Gio, if listeners want to connect with you or learn more about your work, what's the best place for them to go? Is it LinkedIn or?
I'm on LinkedIn. They can certainly
Okay.
message me. I reply to everything. I'm not on that platform all the time, but I check it periodically. So absolutely. If you do business with HP, you can contact me through my email. That's perfectly fine. And I don't know. I'm not hiding. So
Okay. You're here. Yeah. I like it. Awesome. Well, hey, Gio, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, feel free to subscribe, follow, or reach out to both of us. We're more than happy to answer any questions and get to know everyone a little bit better. So thanks again, Gio. Really appreciate your time today.
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this talk and happy market research.